Welcome to the Novel Analyst Podcast. I'm Jed Hearn, and each episode I analyse a story to help you become a better writer. Episode 8. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, Creating Empathy for the Hero. Ready Player One follows teenager Wade Watts on his search for an Easter egg in a huge virtual reality game, the discovery of which will lead him to inherit a fortune. It's a fun, action-packed read, definitely one of the best novels that I read in 2017. And one thing that really stood out for me when I read this novel was how much I empathised with Wade. I truly cared about him finding that Easter egg. On the topic of empathy, Larry Brooks, in his book Story Engineering, which I'll have the notes to in the show notes, writes, "Think about the books you love and the characters that star in them. The reason you love these stories is because you feel for a character. You get him. You empathise. You invest yourself emotionally in the reading experience." Now this quote got me thinking, how can writers create empathy for their characters? According to the Cambridge English Dictionary, empathy is the ability to share someone else's feelings or experiences by imagining what it would be like to be in that person's situation. And there's tons of ways to create empathy. Just off the top of my head, I can think about numerous examples of showing the character doing something good or like making them disadvantaged or something like that. But my favourite method for creating empathy, or at least the method that I think Ready Player One advocates, is to give your hero a strong goal. Now, to show why this works, I'm going to analyse how Ready Player One uses Wade's goal of finding the Easter eggs to create empathy for Wade. To do this, I'm going to break down the 4 key elements of this goal and explain why the goal is so strong. So, number 1, the goal is strongly desired. Wade's drive to find the Easter egg is so strong that he doesn't leave his apartment for months, barely sleeps, and spends almost all his time inside the virtual reality game where the Easter egg is hidden. Okay, so he's serious about his goal. How does this create empathy? Well, I think it comes down to this. The more strongly a hero desires something, the more tension is created. This is because as a person's desire to accomplish something increases, the achievement of this goal becomes a greater part of that person's identity. Failure to achieve this goal, then, will be psychologically damaging. Strong goals, then, lead to a strong fear of failure. Makes sense. More that's on the line, more that's on stake, more you have to lose. Failure is a universal aspect of life, and this means readers can identify with Wade's fear of failure, because there have been times when readers also feared failure. And what this does is it creates empathy, because it's syncing up the emotional histories and patterns of the readers with the protagonist. Number 2, the protagonist actively tries to achieve the goal. People are defined by actions, not words. So if your protagonist just mopes around, wanting something but not taking any real steps to achieve it, readers aren't going to have empathy. They're just going to be annoyed at how irritating the protagonist is. By contrast, we like active characters. As Jack Bickham says, and again I'm going to link up all the places where these quotes come from. As Jack Bickham says in... let me get up the reference here. As Jack Bickham says in the 38 most common fiction writing mistakes, that's the one I was quoting from, interesting characters are almost always characters who are active risk takers, highly motivated towards a goal. Sorry for that pause there, but I just want to make sure I got the wording right. So, interesting characters are almost always characters who are active risk takers, highly motivated towards a goal. What does that mean? Well, it means that having an active protagonist creates empathy, because readers like characters who drive the plot. They like proactive characters who are out there fighting, exploring, detecting, doing whatever they can to move the story forward. And this is certainly the case with Wade. He stops at nothing to find the Easter egg, and his actions are constantly driving the story forward. And that sense of narrative progression is a really good way to make readers empathise with the character, because through the actions of the character, the readers are experiencing like a progressive story and a progressive complication. So they kind of like the fact that the story is moving forward because of this character. Number 3, the goal is difficult to achieve. Wade's super poor, has hardly any resources, and no real-world friends. Plus his family gets killed in one of the early chapters. Spoilers, but hey, look, you're going to read it. So there you go. And this makes it hard for him to find the Easter egg, especially when he's competing against a mega corporation with hundreds of players and trillions of dollars. Clearly, Wade's goal will be hard to accomplish. Why does this matter? In Story by Robert McKee, something that I quote pretty much every second episode, mainly because it's a fantastic book, Robert McKee notes that true character is revealed in the choices a human being makes under pressure. The greater the pressure, the deeper the revelation, the truer the choice to the character's essential nature. Thus, the harder a goal is, the better it is from a storytelling perspective. After all, diamonds are made under pressure. Wade's difficult goal forces him into tough situations which show his character's essential nature. This lets readers understand who he truly is. And when you understand who someone is, when you strip back a character's facade and bare their soul to the reader, understanding and probably empathy is assured. I'm sure there's going to be times when readers realize your character is an absolute arsehole of a person, pardon my French, but in those cases, even if there's not empathy for the main character, there's still going to be understanding, and that's going to help. Number 4. The goal is altruistic. Altruistic means showing a wish to help or bring advantages to others, even if it results in disadvantage for yourself, and that's from the Cambridge English Dictionary. So I believe altruism is really the key component of an empathy-inducing goal. And the reason why, to explain the reason why, I'd like to present 2 scenarios. Scenario A. Your friend wants to make as much money as possible. Scenario B. Your friend wants to make as much money as possible to raise money for charity. So here we can see that both goals are very similar, but because the second friend's goal is far more altruistic, you'll probably want him to succeed more than the first friend. This is also true in Ready Player One. The megacorp competing against Wade also want to find the Easter egg. However, they want the egg so they can control and monetize the world's biggest virtual reality game. This is a selfish goal. By contrast, Wade wants to find the egg so that he can keep the game free for everyone to enjoy. This is an altruistic goal, and because of it, readers empathize with Wade, not the megacorp. I mean, obviously the fact that Wade is the point of view character and you understand more about him helps with that, but I think if you just look at this objectively based on the different goals, it's clear which one the reader is going to side with. It's clear which character is a much better person. Plus, because Wade's accomplishment of his goal will improve others' lives, readers also want him to succeed more strongly than if his goal wasn't as altruistic. And by aligning the reader's desire for Wade to succeed with Wade's own desire to succeed, this creates empathy. Because again, the more that readers and the main character can be aligned, the more empathy can be created. And that doesn't mean that the main character has to be like a carbon copy of the reader, although in some books that works effectively. What it just means is that the wants of the reader and the wants of the characters align. So there are a million ways you can create empathy for your protagonist, but I think that giving protagonists a compelling goal is one of the best ways to achieve this. Unlike using a cliched trope of making your hero an outcast or a cripple or an orphan, a goal-based method is adaptable to just about any kind of story. And done right, empathy won't just make readers feel for the character, it will make them be the character. And I think that's something that we can all try to aim at with our stories. Thanks for listening to the Novel Analyst Podcast. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the podcast. Episodes are released every 2 weeks on Tuesday. If you've got questions, episode ideas, or book recommendations, I'd love to hear them. You can contact me at jed.hearn1@gmail.com or on Twitter @jedhearn. Stay tuned for my next episode, in which I analyse The Stars by Destination by Alfred Bester.